G'day everyone and welcome to the Eternal Gathering podcast. This is episode 2 and I'm the Gatherer. And today we're going to be going through the BNR announcement that happened today. Today is actually the 19th of November. And we're going to also discuss a bit about power creep these days in Magic. There was an article written by Brian Hawley today named Play Design Lessons Learned, which we'll discuss. And the new Commander products coming out for 2020. I have a bit of discussion about that and what that means for Commander players and Magic as a whole. So we'll begin today with the news on the BNR announcement. So we've got a few cards to talk about. Firstly, we'll talk about Standard. And obviously card that everyone was pinning down to be the card to be banned today, Oko Thief of Crowns, was banned, and pretty much for all the reasons that we come to already know. 70% of the meta played Oko based decks, the food decks, obviously dominating Standard, and this led to it having a 53% win rate in non-mirror matches, with the only deck that having the favourable matchup against the Oko decks were actually the Simic Flash decks, with only though a 50% win rate against the food token decks that Oko was a part of. So by removing Oko, they are going to obviously open up the diversity of the format, as Oko was limiting the diversity, as 70% obviously were playing the exact same deck. But they also went on to ban a couple of other cards because they felt green was quite strong in the format, was strong in terms of consistency of those decks, and therefore Once Upon a Time was banned in Standard, along with Veil of Summer. So both cards also being added to the Standard ban list today. So obviously Veil of Summer is a card that we have spoken about before. Yes, very strong sideboard piece. It led to decks not being able to perform as well against those green based decks in the format, and as well as taking away Once Upon a Time, so that those decks weren't as consistent in finding the right lands that they needed or creatures that they needed at the beginning of the game, having a free cast. So those were the cards banned in Standard. Obviously we had a banning last week of in Pioneer, of Veil of Summer. Veil of Summer was banned in Pioneer, basically for the same reasons as it was banned in Standard. It was just too efficient of an answer in the sideboard for green based decks. There were actually no bannings for Pioneer today, which I found to be a little bit surprising, especially when Once Upon a Time got banned today in Standard. I really thought Once Upon a Time has the same issues in Pioneer, but nonetheless, there were no bannings today in Pioneer, so the format they feel is in a good spot. They also went on to talk about how there will be scheduled updates for the BNR announcement of Pioneer weekly, but they didn't anticipate any further bans over the next couple of weeks unless there was something that stood out quite a lot in the next couple of weeks, due to the fact that there are some large tournaments happening in the Pioneer format, and they wanted the players to go into those tournaments to be able to participate with the deck that they had already built for those tournaments. So there might not be any bannings for the next couple of weeks for Pioneer. So then we go on to Brawl. Yep, that's right. Brawl is still a format, apparently. I don't play Brawl. I don't know anyone else that plays Brawl, but Apparently, Oko Thief of Crowns is also banned in that format. So that's all I have to say about that, really. I think it's going to be mostly an arena format in the future, Brawl. Don't see it catching on in paper, really, unfortunately. Legacy. So, look, I'm not an expert in Legacy or really an expert in any format. I feel like good understanding of the modern and Pioneer formats, but Legacy is not something that I play personally. But Ronan Six was banned today in Legacy. So the article goes on to explain that the decks that run Ronan Six, the Temur Delver decks, were just too strong in the current meta, having a 56.5% win rate and earning over 3 times as many 5-0 finishes as the next deck in Magic the Gathering Online, and also had a favourable matchup against each of the other 10 most played decks in the format. So quite dominant deck this was. So they found out that, Ronan 6 being able to utilize its ability to get Wasteland back into your hand and just take away your opponent's resources, their lands, was obviously too strong for that format, as well as the relevance of 1 damage in the format to the creatures like Young Pyromancer, Thalia Guardian of Thraben, and Mother of Runes, all having 1 toughness and being able to be easily disposed of by Ronan 6. So that is the reason why he left the format. He's been banned. I feel like just banning him allowed for Temur Delver decks to still be part of the metagame, but just not as dominant as they have been with him in the deck. And then finally today we had Vintage having a restricted card added to the list, and that is Narset Parter of Veils. Again, I'm not really familiar with Vintage as a format, but the article explains that it was contributing to a lot of one-sided games with soft locks from Narset's static ability, which doesn't allow your opponent to draw more than 1 card each turn. So they thought that restricting the card so that the frequency of these locks occurring was the best course of action for the format. So that is the BNR announcement for today. The next BNR announcement is going to be the 16th of December, so about a month away. Now, my thoughts about what was banned and what wasn't banned. I feel like, yes, everyone knew that in Standard, Oko was going to get banned. I feel like Once Upon a Time, another card that's very, very strong, is also another good idea to ban and get rid of now, because it's only just going to get stronger the more cards you add to the format. I feel like Once Upon a Time is another card that Pioneer needs to look at in terms of banning. I feel like just any green deck that plays in Pioneer just needs to be playing that card. I think Oko is also kind of on a watch list in Pioneer. I feel like the Izzet Phoenix decks have been quite strong in Pioneer as well. Still one of the best decks you can be playing. And I still feel like Treasure Cruise is on the watch list in my opinion, for me. It just kind of powers that deck too much. Otherwise, Teferi, Time Reveler could be another option as well, moving forward, as a card that potentially could get banned in Pioneer. I feel Modern is in a good spot. Yes, Oko and Urza decks, they're quite strong. I still feel like we've still got enough cards in the format to deal with those type of strategies, but something to keep in mind. Veil of Summer being banned in Standard and in Pioneer, I feel like, yeah, that's the right call. Modern, it's power level is actually, I feel, quite on par with what Modern is like as a format. So don't see any reason for that to be banned in Modern. So that's my kind of thoughts on what was and what wasn't banned. It's going to be interesting having Pioneer not have a real ban and restricted announcement for the next couple of weeks, as they want to kind of let the meta kind of see what happens, let it stay for a while in its current state. So it'll be interesting to see what decks do well in those upcoming tournaments. Yeah, so I guess this kind of leads to our next discussion, our next topic of discussion today, which is an article brought out today by Brian Hawley. And I'll leave a description of... I'll leave a link in the description of the article down below, so you guys give it a read. It's actually a really good and interesting article. Brian Hawley is the lead play designer for Wizards of the Coast for Magic, and it kind of begs the question: power creep, is this an issue in Magic at the moment? If we go and look at today's BNR announcements, as well as the ones in the last year, most of the cards that have been banned and restricted have come from recent sets. So you look at Vintage, I mean, arguably the strongest format there is, had a restriction of Khan the Great Creator, Mystic Forge, and now Narset, Potter of Veils. So also Oko's been quite dominant in that format as well, I've read. So, you know, cards that are quite new to Magic, going into those really old formats where you have really strong cards back before playtesting was a thing, or R&D was really a thing. So it's a bit alarming to kind of see cards being able to break into these Eternal formats. You got other cards like Ronan Six, who just got banned today in Legacy, coming from Modern Horizons, which came out not too long ago. You've got cards that are pretty much dominating or are within a lot of the decks in Modern, like Teferi, Time Reveler, Summer Veil Summer, sorry. And then you've got other cards coming into the format, like Khan the Great Creator in the Tron decks, Once Upon a Time. So cards that are impacting the Eternal formats from the standard format, which is not something that usually happens. I haven't seen this in the time I've been playing Magic. I haven't seen so many cards coming in from standard to these Eternal formats. Yes, you might have like a Fatal Push come in to Modern, or having some impact in those formats, but not a whole slew of cards like we have seen in the last year. So, what did this article talk about? So this article actually was quite interesting. It was talking about the conscious efforts by the play design team to lower the power of standard. So back in Battle for Zendikar, Kaladesh, they consciously decided to lower the power level of the cards. They tried to make cards more niche, like Alpine Moon, for example, to kind of, utilize that kind of design space, not making cards that were pushed for constructed play, more just kind of answers or niche kind of cards or archetypes, which then led to what us as players found possibly a little bit overbearing was, a warp in the format when you had cards like Smuggler's Copter, Gideon, Ally of Zendikar just being played everywhere in that standard. So that made them rethink what it meant to design Magic sets and standard sets. So then they came up with this philosophy called Fire. So Fire being fun, inviting, replayable, and exciting. So this was actually the catalyst in powering up standard sets once more. So they were building or designing cards that were more riskier in terms of their design space, and therefore we got cards from Water Spark that are quite strong, as well as Throne of Eldraine. So he actually is quite happy with the power level of the sets, the standard sets these days, and seems like they're going to continue with that moving forward. However, he did mention that yes, there were some cards that were a bit too strong, but that's what is going to happen when they're designing cards like this. So they obviously spoke a bit about Oko and how when they were designing him, they didn't know he was going to be as dominant or as strong as he ended up becoming. Actually, initially they said that he was actually stronger than what he actually is. When they were first designing him, he was able to steal permanents quite easily from the opponents, which led to really unfun games. So they changed that, but they said that actually they didn't really respect the fact that his ability to take away or negate a whole permanent was just too strong of an ability, especially for a 3 mana planeswalker. So yes, they did kind of acknowledge that they did make a mistake with Oko, and that mistakes do happen, and they're going to happen within the future. So there's more detail in that article. So if you have a chance to have a read of that article, by all means do so. But kind of then ask the question, is this philosophy a good idea? Does creating a stronger standard offer a better experience for us as Magic players? I'd like to hear your comments in the comment section below. But my thoughts on this new philosophy, Fire, building stronger cards, it shows that there is a conscious effort to make a bit more of a power creep, I guess. In the newer sets, it's going to then lead to probably not a really good outcome overall. Because let's think about it in this way. As a player of Magic, you play standard when you first come out and join the game, because those are the cards that are available. And yeah, after a while you kind of get used to the game, the mechanics, and you go, you know what, I want to play something else. I want to go and try my hand at, well, if you're a new player, you want to go probably to Pioneer before it was Modern, but you got to give yourself a go on Pioneer, and yeah, okay, most of the cards in the last year or so, and then you can build on your knowledge in that format. It's great to have those new cards and be able to play those cards that you have, but at the same time, if you're someone that plays Modern, plays Legacy, and have these decks and have cards each year that always have an impact on your format, it's quite difficult to want to continue playing, having to always get a new card or a new set, always having to change your deck, always having to get the latest and greatest thing. I understand that at the end of the day, it's a company that is providing or having a product that needs to sell for them to be able to obviously continue making a product in the first place. But they need to think about who are they catering for, the players they're catering for, and what do the players actually enjoy about their game. The whole point of Eternal formats is to be able to play with the cards, the old cards that you have, because they're not able to be played in standard, and having a way to play them outside of standard and enjoy a tournament like experience outside of standard, having modern tournaments, pioneer tournaments now, that's great. It allows you to, yes, utilize the products that you bought earlier from this company. Having to continually purchase as a necessity, it just kind of takes away from the fact that what's the point of me playing all these older formats if I can just play standard all the time, because all the new cards anyways are going to be played in the older formats. So why bother playing those formats and just play standard? Or on the other hand, not playing at all because I don't want to be purchasing every 3-4 months a new set so I can just continue to play this game. Yes, okay, having a couple cards here and there from a set, impacting formats is interesting. It's great. It's healthy. But it can't be every single set or, 5-10 cards each set being introduced into a new format. It just takes away from what it means to have an Eternal format in the first place, and for what it means to be a player of those formats. So, power creep, I feel like, is happening at the moment in Magic, and I think they need to rethink that. I think they need to rethink about, yeah, okay, cool, make standards strong, but be mindful of the fact that you can't have cards that are doing all these wacky and wonderful things, like giving you a free spell to look at the top 5 cards in your library at the beginning of the game, so that you're able to get a land or creature that you need, which makes it more consistent. I mean, it's still a game of variance, but being able to create a deck and build a deck to make it as consistent as possible is part of Magic, and cards that do these things that stop people from interacting with you, or allow you to be just more consistent by having that card in your deck, it just takes a little bit away from the fun aspect, from the skill aspect of the game. So yeah, just something to kind of like think about for Wizards in the future, because at the end of the day, you want to retain your customers, and they're going to stay around if they're able to get most out of what they purchase from you. So anyways, enough about that, about the power creep that may or may not be happening in Magic at the moment. What I do want to kind of touch on that kind of goes a little bit with this topic is the new Commander products coming out for next year in 2020. So next year we have Commander products that are coming out, and there is actually going to be some more Commander products than usual. We're going to have 9 pre-constructed decks and a whole draft set, which is quite interesting actually. I'm quite interested to see how that would work out, a draft set for Commander. So they're going to have 20 card booster packs with 2 legendaries in each pack, and you're meant to draft your Commander deck and play, I will presume, a multiplayer game of Commander with these draft packs. So that's really interesting. Other news, we've heard that Commander is actually the most popular format in all of Magic, so it has the biggest player base and the biggest growth. Which, yeah, okay, that makes sense, I guess. It's quite an interesting format. It's quite different to all the other formats, being more of a social aspect to it, as opposed to being really dominant in tournaments and having to have the best deck and the best cards within your deck. It's more about, having a good time with your friends, talking to one another, having a game, playing these wacky strategies and cards. So I can see how it is quite popular as a format. I love Commander myself and play that on a regular basis with all my friends. And most of my friends that are new to Magic love that format as well. And I feel like that is because, you got your standard sets, and they might play a little bit of standard, or they might, purchase those new cards because they're the new cards to get. They don't necessarily go and purchase modern cards, legacy cards. They might start purchasing some pioneer cards now, but they're not going out to grab decks because it's difficult to come up with a deck, to build a deck in modern or legacy or even standard in that regards, unless you actually have some of the new cards to start building around. Whereas Commander, you can go and purchase a deck each year and be able to play that deck with your friends who have their own decks that they've made or previous pre-constructed decks that they have, and not get absolutely stomped on in those matches, because there is a good power level within those pre-constructed decks. So I feel like the success of Commander has come from new players being able to grab a deck every year and enjoy that deck and be able to play with that deck. Okay, yeah, Commander is growing as a format. There are more players, but is Wizards kind of milking the set too much, or the format too much? Sorry, I mean, if we have a think about it, there's 9 pre-constructed decks. So usually there was 4 or 5 each year, and now we're almost doubling that. Plus a whole draft set for Commander with more than 70 new legendary creatures being introduced to the format. So as a Commander player, yeah, it's quite exciting to be having all these products, but at the same time, do I have an urge to go and buy, or do I have to want to buy these products because I want to of my own accord, or because all of a sudden now these new Commander that comes out in the draft set and Commander Legends, they're all extremely powerful. They are probably the best commanders for their respective color identities. So now I have to go and purchase these decks and purchase these cards and build decks around these cards, which is not really far-fetched to think about it. If you have a look at pre-constructed decks in the past, and the commanders that were part of the pre-constructed decks, they were cards that have defined a format in terms of the color identities of some of those legends are the ones that you have to play, or everyone plays, because that is the strongest card. Having a look at Atraxa, that's a very strong commander. Edgar Markov is another really strong commander that has been printed in recent sets. So there could be a bit of a power creep in terms of Commander having to buy or get always these new Commander products. As a new Commander player, might be a bit difficult, because maybe you are used to just buying once a year, having a couple of decks, 1, 2, 3, 4 decks the average player might have. But now having to purchase 9, or having the opportunity to purchase 9 decks, plus 70 other commanders, plus obviously all the the legendary creatures that come in the regular standard sets. Again, is this oversaturation of the market? Is this just making it just overwhelming as a commander player, having all of these different combinations now, which then again could push people away and just be like, well, you know what, there's no point in me getting this commander because next year there'll be an even better one, so why would I buy something that I isn't going to be relevant in the coming months or year. So yeah, it's really interesting conversation to kind of have, this idea of is Wizards really pushing the power level of cards a bit too much. I like having a bit of a push, a natural push, but I feel like last year especially, it's just set after set after set, and there's so many sets coming out as well, and there's just so many great cards that are just really powerful and just need to be in a new form, in each format. They just need to be in those decks. Just something to really think about. Not to mention that they've got another 8 card collection set for green for Commander coming out, kind of like similar to spell books. So yeah, a lot of Commander products next year, and it's great to have some reprints. Like I said, they're going to have a lot of reprints coming out for in these Commander products, but having a lot of the new Commanders kind of gets me a little bit nervous in terms of do we really need to have that many Commander or Legendaries within a new set, and is this going to be a regular thing moving forward, especially with Commander being one of, or actually if not the most popular format in Magic. So anyways, thanks guys for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like more content. Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are on today's BNR announcement, and also on what you think about the new philosophy that R&D has come up with, or not R&D, play design team has come up with. With that all being said, everything on the stack has resolved, and good games everyone.